What's up, everyone? It's Friday afternoon. I got Coach Noah Johnston with me. We got a tight little half-hour show planned for you because my wife has the day off, and I got plans to take her out to lunch. So we'll start the weekend a little early today. But we got 5 things we want to talk about, starting with the latest roster moves. The Niners waived Justin School. Justin, we hardly knew you. This guy is one of the 2 offensive tackles they've drafted, and they've put 3 years into developing him. He got his knee messed up in June, and now he's gone. It was nice to know you. What should we remember about Justin School? And what happened? How was he gone?
I think they should remember. Right, didn't similar situation happen last year? DJ Reed was waived with an injury, and starting corner in Seattle. I think it seems like, remember the first year when School was a rookie, he came in and he had some good games. Like he had some solid games, and then last year I think they tried him at guard a little bit, and he didn't look so good. And I think he even subbed in a couple of times, and it didn't look like he had it. I personally don't think in the grand scheme of things, it really matters too much. They drafted another guard tackle this year. Sean Coleman is back. So
McKivitz.
Yeah, Cole
McKivitz. Yeah.
I don't think it's like huge news.
Alfredo Gutierrez.
Yeah, actually, he's an intriguing. Like, I'm curious to see in camp how he holds up, right? Because I've tried to find film on him. Like,
does it exist? I don't know.
He's a guy that played in Mexico. So
to find
different level of competition, even from college here. So you could get anything from him through, like, wow, hidden gem, or that he can't play on this level. But
can you explain to me though how this escalates so quickly from a guy gets hurt and it's like, forget IR, dude, just go away. We're done with you. Does he request it on his own? Like, I don't want to be here anymore.
I think it probably has to do with and I don't know specifically. It probably has to do with something with the roster, something with what the Niners probably get something by releasing him.
Yeah. And if he clears waivers, they could bring him back.
They can bring him back, and he doesn't count. He probably doesn't count versus like a roster like exemption or something like that. They want an extra roster spot. He doesn't count if he's on injured reserve. Then I think he counts. He still counts on the roster spot. It probably has something to do with that.
Yeah, it's the same reason why they tried to get cute with DJ Reed last year and it burned him.
Yeah,
because he didn't have a torn ACL or anything like that. What did he have?
Right. I don't remember exactly.
I don't remember either.
But it wasn't huge, right? Because he came back in
True. He played a really good year last year for Seattle. But in terms of with Justin School, what we need to know is he could come back. He just has to clear waivers. And it's not like he's shown much the last couple of years that will make a team be like, ooh.
Yeah, I mean,
Justin School coming off a torn ACL, let me get that.
I got to go to school.
I love that little – man, I love that the school and the person puns. Like, I couldn't get enough of Mike Person, Justin School. Take him to school, person of interest. And now they're both gone. Oh, well. There's not as many Tomlinson puns and McGlinchey puns. Although people have gotten pretty clever with the McGlinchey name, I got to say.
You could kill it with the Tom Compton puns, right?
You could. Okay, so in a corresponding move, Niners waived Justin School and signed Senio Clementi, which, I mean, I don't know much about him, but I was always under the impression that he was a guard. What do you think of this move?
It's a body.
It's a body.
It's another body. I think Kyle even touched on it last year. Like, you want to have bodies in camp because like you don't want your play like
good way to prevent injury, right?
Yeah, you don't want your players. You don't want your players taking
getting hurt in practice. God forbid.
Get hurt in practice.
God forbid. Yeah, absolutely. Because we're talking about practice here, not a game. Not a game. I like your hat real quick. What is that?
Yeah, it's a Nike hat.
Oh, I like it a lot. I like
Nike hat.
Goes with
the, you might get yelled at. You might get yelled at by your dad, though. Like, it seems like it's funny. I'm watching all your YouTubers, and they're all not wearing hats now because
he wears a hat all the time. I think wearing it to the back, he would approve of because you're not covering your face. I'm sorry, that was. We're talking about.
Sorry. I'm a hat guy. I've always been.
I like it.
Like,
I like the color. I like the whole thing that you got going. It's got kind of like a 1991 flavor, which I appreciate. I kind of like that. I had hammer pants in college, which I wore to death. I was really proud of them. Parachute pants kind of thing. Anyway, we're talking about senior calamity. And what I'm trying to say here is that, does this mean that they're going to move someone else to tackle, or is this the swing tackle now? It's not the swing tackle, is he?
I think it seems to me that they're probably banking on Sean Coleman being able to do something, and then they'll probably
Jalen Hurd in D4 too, right?
And then they'll start training on using their rookie who's a tackle guard, they said
Jalen Moore.
Jalen Moore is a tackle guard, so they'll bring him in that spot. And I think the one thing about this happening now is if like Coleman doesn't look like he has it, and the rookie is just so overwhelmed, and you can't use McKivitz, they can make a move to get a backup tackle, or they can look at checked waivers. This is why I brought up before we were talking about when we were talking about trading for receivers. Like you don't really need that. Like, hold up. Like, let's see if there's any injuries that happen, because you might need.
Because they're gonna happen. First of all, it's the 49ers.
Yes.
And there are places that are thin.
No, they're going to happen. It's not even one. It's the 49ers. Two.
But it's football. Two, it's football.
Right. It's football, and camp
Two, it's football.
hasn't even really hasn't started. Like, they're gonna play actual games. Practice is going to ramp up. There's going to be injuries.
True. So it ain't calamity. He's a body that plays guard. Because the way that Mike Garofalo, the guy who broke the story from 3,000 miles away, which always kills me, phrased it was like, hey, he can play tackle too. And this is a corresponding move with Justice Skull's like, it better not be 1-to-1. Like, this is a body, and you can move anyone else out there. Honestly, I would move Brunskill. I mean, I know they want him. They like him at center too, but I think if the question is, who's the third best offensive tackle on the 49ers? It's Brunskill. So I would just use him.
I think if there was a gun pointed to their head, and final 53-man roster, they got it down, and they had to like move a guy, they probably would use Brunskill. But like, because there's time, I think they're gonna plan to. They don't want to do that to Brunskill, because
they did that last year.
It's like Jimmy Ward all over again. Like, let the dude learn a position, get good there.
Yeah. Hey, we want to develop you for our long-term center, but we really need to get through the next 4 practices. So go play left tackle. Like, okay, that's a waste of time. But he is a good tackle. I mean, I don't know.
I think if they had a game in a week, I think that they'd be an option. But I think just because they have some time, like, just put a buck here, let them run reps, like,
Good call. Yeah. All right. So they lost School. They lost Tavarius Moore. And the corresponding move with Tavarius Moore was signing Tony Jefferson. But Tony Jefferson and Tavarius Moore have totally different skill sets. One is a free safety in Moore, and one's really a box strong safety in Jefferson. Once again, it feels like the corresponding move is more a body than a 1-to-1 replacement, which brings us to Jared Maiden, the undrafted free agent last year, who went to Alabama and played free safety and nickelback, a lot like Tavarius Moore. What have you seen from Jared Maiden, and why is he important?
So Jared Maiden's pretty interesting, right? Because he was recruited he was a 4-star corner, I believe.
Yep.
Right. So, and then he played. I think he was in their system 2 years as a corner. And then he played nickel. Then they moved him from safety. So he's played all over, right? Yeah. He's, from what I've seen, he's comfortable in man coverage. He's his tackling leaves some wanting. He comes in way too high.
Got it.
His angles aren't terrible though.
Just watching him move and cover last year in camp, I was thinking, why was this guy not drafted? He looks like a 4th-round pick. So it's the tackling for a safety. He just tackles like a corner. Fair?
Yeah.
Fair. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that part of his game. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the thing about it is he's got decent size. He's 6 foot, 205. Decent size. Comfortable in man coverage. I think I mentioned that. So I think, if I was watching the LSU game in your Discord the other day with some people. Like, he didn't have a problem with those LSU receivers, right? In 2019, he didn't get burnt. He wasn't the one that got burned. Right. So he's the guy, I think, in that, with those backup safeties, that has the athleticism to do some of the things that Ward and Tart do, right? Because if What a guy that's comfortable in man coverage, can play nickel, played both safety spots, has played all over. Like, kind of sounds like, a poor man's Ward, right? And then
sounds a lot like Moore too. I mean, if you're trying to have a guy who can play single high safety to free up Ward and Tart, someone who's rangy but not great at tackling, well, that's Tavarius Moore. I mean, Tavarius Moore was a bad tackler, so maybe Maiden can give 80% of what Moore was going to give.
Right, but I think the difference between what I've seen as Maiden and Moore is that Moore's issue with tackling is angles.
Right.
The issue is form,
technique,
like too high.
That's more fixable, right?
Right, and that's exactly what that's fixable to me. Like, I have a hard time. I can't really fix your athleticism. I can't really if you're athletic but you don't really have the movement skills or just the feel for coverage. I can fix it, but it's much more difficult.
Yep.
If you taking bad angles, it's harder to fix than just teaching you tackling technique.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about Maiden, and it'll be interesting because he's been in their system for a year. We didn't remember any of these rookies that were in the class last year didn't get preseason, so they didn't get those 4 games under their belt. I would have been interested to see how he did in those 4 games. In fact, I was like, yeah, let me log in, and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot, no preseason last year. So I'll be real interested to see how he is, how he tackles, and if he shored that up, I think, you're not asking him to come in here and be the starting safety, but be a solid backup.
Yeah,
it could pay dividends for the Niners
because all the other backup safeties are strong safeties, it seems to me. So to have him be able to step up would be huge for them. I think he's going to be a sleeper to make the team.
Yeah, I mean, he might not just be he might be a sleeper to actually be a
contributor. Yep.
To see when they actually let you in camp, and
we'll see. We'll see. Yes. Man, I just noticed that you're repping LA above you. Where'd you get that? And have you been to LA?
I got it. I got it at a home goods store.
Have you been to LA?
No, I haven't.
No, it's inspiring you to go, right? I like it. I spent 4 years there.
Yeah, UCLA, right?
But when I was there, I didn't have a car, so I was basically stuck in one neighborhood, and it was, you know what I mean? It was like, that's the thing about LA. You kind of need a really nice car and a nice spot. Otherwise, it's like
hanging out with your boy James Franco, right?
Yeah. No, he was only after the freshman girls. Seriously, though. Okay, Chris Royal says the biggest treat.
If you want to cover the Niners proper, you got to move out here. Like, forget.
That's true, man. That always makes me laugh in the morning. Like, oh, here we go. This time it's Mike Garofalo. Next time it's Ian Rappaport. He's never going to be one of the 8 of us ever. Thanks, 49ers, for.
I gotta call up Salah. He's gonna give you. He'll give you this advice pretty soon. Like, Grant, wanting to go to the next level, you got to move out to New York.
It's true. It's worked for him. Did you see the standing ovation he got at the Knicks game? Meanwhile, Kyle Shanahan's getting bombarded at soccer games, being like, "Hey, man, don't you freaking dare take Mac Jones." Chris Royal says, with Wilson out and Mostert having the inability to stay healthy, should they put Raheem on a snap count and have the rookies share the load? It's an interesting bonus question.
Yeah, it was a question we talked about again in Grant's Discord. Someone asked me, who do I think could be the breakout player this year, and on offense, and I said Trey Sermon, because I think he's a guy that they could end up being get the bulk of the carries and have like a 1,200 to 1,500 yard year, because it doesn't look like Raheem Mostert can carry that kind of load. And I don't know that you want him to, right? Like, if he could just be a breakaway back and change of pace and then give you like huge runs, and if he has a game where he's really feeling it, like playoffs, then you feed him. But otherwise, sermon time.
Yeah. The thing I've noticed, I was just talking about this like an hour ago with Rob Sue. All the Niners running backs have injury history, even Sermon. I mean, Sermon didn't play much in 2019. So Sermon has the license and the ability and the opportunity. So does freaking Raheem Mostert and JaMychal Hasty. I mean, I think these guys are all going to have to play because they're all going to get hurt for an extent. And when I was my prediction for who's going to lead the Niners in rushing next year is Wayne Gallman, just because I feel like, I don't know, he's going to make it. Like, he played 15 games last year. That's something for the 49ers. So don't forget Wayne Gallman. That's a guy, that's a body who's available. So he's important to them. They were trotting out freaking Jerick McKinnon last year. Wayne Gallman's a step up from Coleman too.
Yeah, so, Wayne Gallman had he did pretty solid with the Giants.
He's going to be the MVP of this team this year. You just watch. No one's expecting it, but they're going to be like, Wayne, can you save us? And he's going to be like, yes, this is my moment. And he's going to run for 800 yards in one game. Hunter says, Grant, do you think Shanahan blames you for people turning on him? Yeah, no question. It's all my fault.
It's Grant's fault.
It's definitely my fault.
Yeah.
Hey, the best way that he could get me off his back is to pay me $2 million and I'll retire. $2 million.
All the bad things that have happened to the Niners last 40 years have to do with Cohn, right?
Yeah, man, $2 million is nothing to Kyle. He makes like $11 million a year, man. Break me off. I'll be out of your hair. You don't even have much hair. All right, moving on. Trey Lance. He's got 6 weeks to make some decisions and do the right thing. What should he be doing the next 6 weeks if you were his coach? If you were him?
I mean, he should be dug in that playbook. I mean, if he's having those mechanical issues, he should be working with the coach and trying to get in on those mechanical issues.
Those two things. Because the playbook thing, the verbiage is like a new language, right? That's really hard.
Yeah, make sure you hydrate, Lance, and
don't go to the desert. Right. Stay away from Vegas and Palm Springs and just hang out in Santa Clara. Although it's kind of dry in Santa Clara too, so you want to hydrate. That's true.
Get rest.
Yes, but definitely you got to spend a lot of time learning that verbiage, right? Because he'll hit you with a 30-word play, and you'll have to visualize it instantly. All the routes, everything about it. That's tough. It seems like that's the hardest part about joining a new team in the NFL. Right?
I think he will. All indications that he's intelligent and that he's willing to put the work in.
But still, like learning a new language, that's like immersion. I suck at that, and I got good grades. I don't know. It just seems like really hard to be able. You almost have to only speak that. You really have to dedicate yourself to it, right?
I feel you, man. Like language is one of the things that was difficult for me. I took 5 different languages trying to find a language that I like.
Same problem. Yep.
I took Spanish, French, Japanese because I was like, oh yeah, it's different. Maybe I'll latch on to Japanese because it's not a Latin.
High degree to difficulty on that one.
Swahili.
I
took Swahili.
Wow. And I think for Trey Lance, a lot of this stuff is Swahili. You know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, he can learn it. And it doesn't mean that I don't even know if smart has anything to do with it. I think it's a whole immersion thing. You kind of have to, like I took French forever, middle school, high school, college. I can't understand a word. When people start talking, it just like all runs together. But in classes, I could get A's because I could conjugate the verbs. Like that means anything. You know what I mean?
The best thing about Swahili is the professor was he was an ex-band member of Shana Na. It was like a band that played in Woodstock. And so like we would Swahili, but he would give us these crazy stories about like Janis Joplin and all this other stuff.
That's tight. Yeah. So I was dropping acid with Janis Joplin this one time, and that's really cool. That's really cool. So Trey, you definitely want to learn this language because that's just going to take time on task and immersion. But the other thing is you really should be at a throwing guru. I don't know. You probably have some people you trust, McAvoy, Quincy, whatever his face is.
Whoever it is.
No disrespect.
Yeah. Whoever it is you trust.
Whoever you trust.
You can go work out with that guy.
And nothing against Coach McAvoy, but you might want to hit up Tom House too because he's got proven results. I'm just saying. I mean, why would you not? Nick Mullins went there. Why would you not?
Right. And the other what I wanted to bring up is someone asked before in your chat. I think not today, but they asked how much do these players like really study and really prepare for games? And I think it's kind of. This falls in line with a little bit because we're talking about Trey Lance's preparation.
Yeah.
I just wanted to answer that and say, I think the really good ones, probably a lot. I think for the most part, probably a lot. I mean, I know you would come across information when Kaepernick was here that he wasn't really that type of guy. Like he wasn't really.
That's what I heard that because he lost his job to Gabbert or the coaches were trying to push Gabbert, even though Gabbert freaking sucked. And they would kind of whisper that like, well, the playbooks are in these tablets and we can track how much time these players spend in it. And Gabbert spends 5 times the amount of time that Kaepernick does. And Kaepernick treats this kind of like a 9 to 5. And it's like, well, okay. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was, yeah.
I can tell you as a high school coach, like our kids are watching. They're in, at least the good ones. They're in there. They're watching. Like I remember when first time I put up my best corner on a receiver. Like we're texting Saturday night, and he's watching film. Like Saturday night after the game is over that we just played, and like we're getting ready for next week. So I think these players they watch. I mean, it's their job, right? Like it's like this is their job. This is their source of living. Practice is only X amount of time, and then their meetings is only X amount of time. It's incumbent upon them to be at home or wherever they're comfortable watching film. Like that's their job. They're getting paid to do that.
B Money says, I know this is off topic. How much film should NFL teams watch? And is there such a thing as watching too much film? Actually, it's perfectly on topic, but I think you preceded us. So you predicted it. What do you think?
It's really how you watch the film, right? It's like what are you looking at? You're looking at things relevant to your position. Are you identifying things with the other team? I don't know that you could probably ever watch too much film as long as you're watching the correct things and getting information out of it.
If I were an NFL coach, and I've never coached at any level, and I'm never going to be an NFL coach, but I would honestly do way less competition in the spring and way much more film work. I mean, let's watch cut-ups of the center of the week 1 opponent and the right guard and the right tackle. Let's do it. So when you get to training camp, it's not the first time you've seen it. I would do all kind of stuff like that. I think what Yogi Berra said, 90% of the game is mental. I agree with that. And I think it's even more applicable in football than baseball. I played baseball, man. In baseball, you got to know how many outs there are, how many strikes there are. I mean, what more do you got to know? Like what the infield fly rule is, what a force out is. That's about it, dude. Football is like it's not quantum physics, but it's very complicated. And I always felt that football players are really freaking smart. So yeah, watch more film. Especially if it's someone like Kyle Shanahan leading it, I would want to watch that if I were a player.
I think the only thing is players assimilate information differently, and some players can see things visually and then assimilate it. Other need to like be in there and
walk through
doing action.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the only thing. And remember in football you're having an array of players, right? So
learn by seeing, learn by doing.
A little differently. Like,
good point. That's a good point. Hunter, thank you, B Money. Hunter says, at practices, do you see any improvement in QB mechanic training? Because looking at Jimmy from when he got here to now, his mechanics haven't improved, and you can make the argument worse. Nah, man, I'm sorry, but Shane Day and Rich Gangarello aren't exactly the top quarterback coaches in the league. And if you don't believe me, just Wikipedia them and look at their freaking, background. They've coached a lot of positions. They're not necessarily quarterback gurus. I'm not exactly sure why Kyle can't get a better guy. Sorry, Rich. Sorry, Shane, but someone with more experience and results, because I think you're absolutely right. It's not like you've seen any of these quarterbacks' mechanics refined and improved since they've been here.
I think Scangarella seems like he's a step up, but we'll see what happens. I mean, everything seems like it's really incumbent or it really relies on Lance. We'll tell you the story about this stat. It'll tell you about Kyle. It'll tell you about Scangarello. It'll tell you about honestly, really what have those guys had to work with? I mean, yeah, Jimmy, but like Jimmy's issue is really the decision making, right? Like, and you've said there's more. Can you really correct that? Like a little bit maybe, but like it's kind of you got it or
when all hell breaks loose on the field, what is your instinct? Is it to make it worse, or are you poised? Yeah. And he's not. I'm sorry. When he did that interception in the Super Bowl, that's kind of just. He's always going to have a couple moments like that every game. And that's why you take the ball out of his hands in big games. That's why Kyle doesn't trust him. I mean, I get it. I do. Matt H says, thoughts on Malik Hooker? Comes with injury history. Yeah, that's my thought. What's your thought?
I like Malik Hooker, but he does have an injury history.
Yeah. So I guess the price depends on the price.
Yeah. But the other thing is that people are always like, why don't you sign this player? Why don't you sign this player? Well, there's another side of it. Just because you put a contract in front of a person doesn't mean they're going to sign it. What if Malik Hooker,
is waiting?
I believe I'm waiting for an opportunity for me to start. So I'm back, wait for injuries to happen. And when one team loses their starting safety, I'm going to sign with that team.
Same with Justin Houston, Everson Griffin, yada, yada, yada. Makes sense. I'm not just going to sign for the vet minimum in June when guy could get hurt in August and I just should have been patient.
Yeah. Why am I going to sign with the Niners now so I can get hurt and then they can waive me. Like I'll just wait. I'll wait for the other guy to get hurt, then I'll come in.
True, because I mean, word's getting out about how freaking dangerous 49ers practices are. You definitely don't want to sign with them now. Wait till training camp's over.
Yeah.
I'm Jay Rico says, do we think Jimmy goes down and Trey starts? Will he be able to win games on his own? I mean, I don't mean winning because he has a good supporting cast. I mean, can you put a team on his back and win as a rookie?
Yeah,
I wouldn't think so.
I wouldn't count on it.
Big Ben didn't do that as a rookie. He was an ancillary player when he went 13-3 his rookie year. Handed off a ton of times.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on that.
No, that's not no. He wasn't even really that player at North Dakota State. He would throw like 17 passes a game, ran a lot. Chris says, as per Shanahan, his success is because he's the greatest coach ever. His failures, well, because it's football, man. Oh, and it's Grant's fault. I like that. That's a good comment. Pretty much the Kyle Shanahan philosophy of life, which I really respect. If something goes well, he's a genius. If something goes poorly, it is what it is. It always is what it is.
Yeah.
I learned that a long time ago. All right, final question. Yeah, we talked about what Trey Lance needs to do. You're a DC. You're a defensive coach. What do you think D'Amico needs to do the next month and a half, given that it's his first time being a defensive coordinator, and he's installing a defense that he's admitted is a little different from his predecessor? So what do you think he needs to do the next month and a half?
I think you have to make sure like all your pieces fit together in what you're trying to do, and that it's a scheme that your players are going to be able to understand, and it's not going to break, because offenses are going to try your scheme and they're going to really try to break it. So for him, I think he's going to have to put together packages that complement his personnel well, and it little ties into the safety stuff that we're talking about, because for me, like you don't want to have for instance, a package that is reliable on an oft injured group, and then those players get injured, and then your backups can't do the same thing as those players. So you have to do something completely different. And
we've been talking about this with the safeties for weeks, and you mentioned Tart and Ward. Isn't it ironic that the reason they can't do this because Moore went down? Sorry.
Yeah.
This is exactly what you've been talking about. It's like, don't get ahead of yourself with all the things you're going to do with your safeties, considering the history there.
Yeah, that's why it's important to have backups that can do. I mean, backup isn't going to be as good as your starter, right? But you want them to have a similar skill set, so you don't have to completely change the things that you do, because it's not just a plug and play, right? When you practice something, it's affecting all 11 players. All 11 players are getting used to what you're practicing, not just those two players. So if you have a package in and you're using three safeties, and that's your answer for that's your nickel package, that's your answer for third down and passing situations. Now, if one of those safeties goes down and your answer is to put a corner there, and that corner isn't used to the run fits, then
you're screwed. Then you have Brian Allen.
Yeah,
the safety equivalent of Brian Allen. One player can ruin everything.
So
yes,
you got to have answers. You got to have answers for that. You got to be a step ahead. What happens if we get an injury? Like, can this that? Those are the things you have to prepare for. Prepare your packages for your backups, with your backups in mind. You should build your defense around, the abilities that Fred Warner, but you have to be prepared. If Fred Warner's not out there, what can the backup do? Because if you're reliant upon Fred Warner to shut down the middle of the field schematically, and what
happens if he gets hurt week one?
Do that, what happens?
I have an example of that. 2016, Chip Kelly hired Jim O'Neill as his defensive coordinator. Jim O'Neill and Chip Kelly wanted to run a true 3-4, which you almost never see anymore. That's a 0 technique, 2-5 technique, 2-4 techniques. So that puts a lot of pressure on that nose tackle, man. You got to be good. You're kind of on your own. And Glenn Dorsey was the guy. It was either Glenn Dorsey or Ian Williams. Anyway, that dude went down in training camp right away. And they had to put Mike Purcell at 0 technique, which is, you would need Vince Wilfork to pull that off. You really need that dude to be your best player on defense. And so the Niners would just give up 250 yards between the tackles every week. And Jim O'Neill's like, man, I can't figure out what's going on here. It's like, man, you can't run this front with that nose tackle. You got You got to have a shaded front. And he finally figured it out after quality control stepped in. But it's like, you're just going to let them run down your throats because you're playing a front that is unfeasible with Mike Purcell. Was on him. It was all his fault. All his fault.
Yeah, and that goes into teaching and everything too. I mean, it's and schematics, like a 2-gap and 1-gap defense. It's a different type of defense, and it's upon a certain type of like you can't
react.
Can't be as aggressive as they can in a 1-gap scheme. So and even it changes your backers too, right? The way your backers flow, because your backers have to read
totally.
Like they can't just be aggressive downhill. So
that's probably why he didn't change things up, because he felt like he had instilled this entire read and react defense. Well, it's all predicated on your nose tackle being a freaking stud, and you lost him in training camp. And so it's exactly what you're saying. It's like, if your entire scheme is built on Fred Warner, being a freaking stud, okay, great. Well, what's the plan when he goes down? Otherwise, you can't just have go from good to bad.
I think people overlook it that, I think they spend a lot of time on how offensive players practice and getting comfortable in the system. It actually works the same way as a defense. Like when I have a freshman player and he's working way up through his system, and he's a backer, and he sees the same thing on the lower levels. He sees a combo block, and he sees how a guard's coming up to him, and he sees those same plays over and over again. It's repetition. So like in the same system. So he's getting used to how teams, because you can only block things so many certain ways. He's getting used to how
you reach and run, you pin and pull. I mean, there's only so many
so it becomes reactionary, right? And it works the same way defensively as it does offensively. So I think like there is something to being in the same scheme and staying with a certain group of plays that your defense is used to, and that's what D'Amico really has to do, is like is develop a scheme or have a scheme and packages ready that even his backups can use.
And I want to add one thing to that. I think he also should probably do some advanced, not that he hasn't already, but he should start looking ahead to week 1, what he's going to do with Detroit. That's a tough, you don't know what that offense is going to look like. As a new coaching staff, he needs to do some prep work, I think, on maybe visualizing how he wants to call that game. Get his quality control guys to do cut-ups of all the different offensive linemen and skill position players. I would get a head start on that.
Well, I'm sure he has. Well, I'm sure he has something in his mind, right? Because the common denominator with Detroit is Goff, right? Jared Goff. Jared Goff. He's gone. Jared Goff. He's been in.
He knows his tendencies, but at the same time, you don't know if that's going to be a run-first offense, if they're going to set up the pass with the run, what the hell they're going to be. It's tough.
Yeah, I do like Detroit's offensive line. I think it's an underrated unit, and now that they have their premier tackle, the guy that I liked a lot. So I think they could have their hands full up front.
All right, D'Amico, we just laid it out for you. You got this. Will says, coaches learn more from film than players from my experience. Film's most beneficial to show tendency, both for and against, and play callers benefit most. Okay, I'm not saying just like turn on the film and watch it like we do in real time. Like, get the clips that you want, have us quality control, cut them up, have freaking Mike McDaniel, D'Amico Ryans, and Kyle Shanahan narrate the stuff and tell them, this is what I see from the right tackle. This is how we're going to beat him. This is his tendency. Yeah, show him the tendencies. I'd like to see it. If I were on that team, I'd be interested. I would go to those classes.
There's a couple things. A couple things. First, like, you can tell a player that this is what your opposition is doing, but showing them is a lot different. Yep. Like, so that's where film. And I've had it in the past where a player identifies something that, like, coaches only have so many eyes. Like, if I have a team full of 50 guys and we're all watching film, it's just more eyes. So
everyone's looking for something different.
Yeah, I've had it happen in the past where a player had hey, this guy stutters too much before he runs a slant. Like, I've had that happen. Like, so It's not, players definitely benefit from watching film. Like, can coaches probably see more? Yeah. But and the other thing is, remember, NFL players are not the same as college players, nor are they the same as high school players. So these guys are trained on how to watch film too. So again, I've said it before, it's their job. Like this is how they're getting paid for their living. So like when Tom Brady's in his living room on his iPad, like he's not in it. He's working. Like
Yeah,
that's what he's doing.
And he's looking for specific things. He's not just like, oh, let's just see what hits. Let's see what I gather. No, he's looking for specific things because he's been doing it for 20 years. God, I would love to watch film with Tom Brady. That would be so interesting. Kyle Shanahan too. It'd be so interesting. Imagine just canceling mini camp. But anyway, we gotta end the show now. As I said, I got an early start to the weekend. Go have happy hour. Go treat yourself if you can. You can because you're on the East Coast. It's great. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no mask out here.
All right. I'll see you in the Discord server. I'm gonna sneak in there a little bit. Don't tell anyone. All right. I'll see you. Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.
Oh, end broadcast.